Hey, welcome to Menace the Menace, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today. We have a jam-packed episode for you. We're super excited, but before we get into it, remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, support us. And this podcast, you're going to get a lot of questions, I'm sure. We're super, super excited to have with us LA Marzulli today. I didn't know much about LA until Ben turned me on to him, and now I can't stop watching his videos. So I'm a huge fan myself. LA, we looked online. There's so much about you. I know you produce films. You've written a lot of books. More books that I've ever read in my life. You've written, and that's probably not true. But I want to kind of give you the chance to introduce yourself and also tell us like what you're working on right now. Get that out there and how we can find you, websites, social media handles, anything, because I'm going to mess that up. So I'm just going to give that to you. Go ahead and tell us all about yourself.
Well, we just finished number 7 and 8 on the UFO film series. There'll be 10 films when we're completely done, and 9 and 10 will release probably late February, sometime in March, because we just released the 2 Roswell films. Mm-hmm. So, and those films are probably some of the best in the series. We are the only Christian ministry that will have, basically they're in the can. So eight films are available right now. 9 and 10. I've completed the post-production. I've handed it off to my business partner, Gil Zimmerman, and Gil's going through it and putting on some final touches. We basically did 7 films in 2023 only because that's what the Lord told us to do. Huh. He basically gave me marching orders in late February, early March. Basically said, get all the UFO films out by the end of the year. And I handed it off to Gil December 31st. So it was like right down to the wire. And cool. We're kind of excited about that. There were 13 books that I've written. I'm working on number 14 now, which will be out sometime this year. Wow. Hand on the plow, constantly working. We have 2 sites that we're going to, which will remain anonymous and undisclosed. And we'll be filming in both of these sites. We'll bring the team up to do that. One is across the pond. So one is in Europe. The other one is in the States here. But these will be 2 films that we'll do for On the Trail of a Nephilim. And they'll be out this year. We actually filmed in Ohio. When was that? It was in August, I believe. And we probably have 2 films there. So hopefully we'll have 4 films out in 2024. I mean, we're just on it. So that's what I do. It's kind of hard to believe in some ways. I'm a musician. I'm a classically trained pianist. There's the piano in the background. There.
Wow. That's awesome. That's talking my language.
I mean, I used to be able to play all sorts of stuff. Now I go, well, what's the point of playing this? I mean, I get that. So I compose all my own material, and I just memorize it, and I play every day, pretty much every day.
Wow.
In the house.
Do you release any of it?
Huh?
Do you release any of it?
Yeah, it's on my music channel, LA Marzulli. Okay. On the YouTube channel, we have like 207,000 subscribers. On the music channel, wow. I think we're around 1,500 or something.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah, but it's okay. It's just that was my first love, and the Lord just shifted everything into what we're doing now. Just a word to younger people. I'm 73, so I just turned 73 in December.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like, if you had told me 43 years ago that I'd be doing what I was doing now, I would have run out of the room screaming. 43 years ago is when I came to the Lord. I was 30 years old. So it's like, the point I'm trying to make is, we think, and some people get this really early. Some people know, and it's just a gift from the Lord. This is what I'm going to do. Bam. And they just go do it. Other people like yours truly, are off. It's not the wrong direction, but just we're going to bring you back over to this side now. And that's what he did over a period of time. I was a worship leader for like forever.
Did you know during that time that something was off, or no? Interesting.
But what the thing was, I left the Catholic Church at 13 years old. This is 1963. Beatles are out. By 65, you've got the whole Eastern Indian guru, Eastern mysticism coming in in the greatest occult explosion since the 20s. And Russ Disdar, my good battle buddy Russ Disdar, and I used to talk about this. And so I was immersed in everything New Age, completely.
Oh, wow.
I was immersed in it. I studied Ouspensky. I did a silver mind control course and passed with flying colors. I wound up living in an ashram for 3 years. I had my third eye open and received, the whole indoctrination. I mean, I was completely sold out. And after 3 years of living in the ashram, I just went, this is bogus. I said, I'm the same schmuck I've always been. Nothing's changed.
You're like, I'm the same schmuck. I just have a red dot on my forehead.
Pretty much, right? But so I'm flying around the universe. I've got spirit guides and all this other cool stuff. But inwardly, I'm the same schmuck. Nothing's changed. And so at the ripe age of 30 years old is when I got a book by Dave Hunt. I think it's called The Cult Explosion. I read that. At the back of it was a little prayer and I just said, look, I don't know who you are, but if you're real, come in because nothing works.
Wow.
And he came in. I mean, life has never been the same since that. I mean, it was just like, it was 3 years of spiritual warfare because of where I came from. So the Lord had me just sit in boot camp for 3 years. Then he said, go out and date. Peggy and I were dating for 3 months. I asked her to marry me. 4 months after that, we were married. So that's 40 years ago this September.
Good for you.
That's amazing.
He's older than both of you young women. So, I mean, that's just a little bit, but the 10 years from 30 to 40 I was a worship leader. I was immersed in the Word constantly. If the church was open, I was there. Bible study, but just constantly immersed in it. And then at 40, the Lord began to open up the writing door. After reading This Present Darkness, and that I just went, wow. And so that was the nexus for writing, and that became the Nephilim trilogy, which was picked up by Zondervan. First book I ever wrote was Nephilim. Wish I could do it over again. I mean, that's 25 years ago.
Would you change a lot?
Yeah, I would.
Oh man, you should like do a revisited one. That would be amazing.
My business partner and I we're working on a screenplay with it.
Even better in my opinion.
Because the fault of that book, and I don't want to get that. We get so much to talk about.
Yeah,
this is the problem. You got me for an hour.
Yeah, I know. I know.
We're looking at 30 films, 13 books.
Listen, we're gonna become friends later. Yes. Okay. For the time being, let's just hop into it. Okay.
But I do have so many questions. I have so many questions now that you just opened up even more for me, but we'll go with what Ben has prepared for today.
Okay. So in the spirit of just hopping into it, I think what we're going to do is we've got a few videos that we've queued up. They're little minute and a half videos. Okay. And those I want to lead us into our conversations. All right. So Dennis, can you pull up the first clip from Tucker?
Absolutely. Here we go.
It's my personal belief, based on a fair amount of evidence, that they're not aliens. They've always been here, and I do think it's spiritual. That's my view. And again, it's not provable, but based on the evidence, I think.
Absolutely. Well,
can I say one thing? If the U.S. government has in fact had direct contact with these beings, whatever they are, I've already told you what I think they are, and has entered into some sort of agreement with them, which is the claim of informed people, I would say, whether they're right or wrong, I can't say conclusively. If that is true, I mean, it's a very, very, very heavy thing.
Yeah, a lot of people say interdimensional beings. I want to ask, are angels and demons, or how would you describe these beings?
These are, again, I'm getting into the realm of conjecture, so I just want to say that flat out.
Entity.
But one thing I know for a dead certain fact, having seen it, is that there is good and evil. We're being acted upon at all times. And I think every person can feel that in himself. I mean, there are moments when you are moved to do things that are much better than you actually are, and they're also more evil and destructive than you actually are. You are subject to forces from outside yourself. That is absolutely true. Now, we can argue about what they are. Every person in the room, if he's reflective, will tell you, yes, I know what you're talking about. And so there are forces that are not human, that do exist in a spiritual realm of some kind, that we cannot see, and that when you think about it, sort of make you think we live in an ant farm.
Yeah.
Right? And that is real. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, LA, I want to start there. So let's just dive right into the deep end, okay? This is now the mainstream. The disclosures that are coming out on CNN, on Fox News, all over the place. There's no more doubt that there are supernatural or extraterrestrial, interdimensional, whatever you want to call them, there's no doubt anymore publicly that these things are real. So from your perspective, what do you think these things actually are? You've got Christians calling them demons, fallen angels. You've got other people calling them the gods of old. Okay. You've got other people, the grays, silver discs, balls of light. There's all these things that are appearing and making themselves known. And as a Christian, I'm like, what the heck is going on? We know biblically there's only two categories of created being. At least this is my perception. We've got human and angelic, right? So what's appearing? It's obviously not human. What's appearing? What do you think?
How much time do we have?
We've got 3 topics like this.
Yeah. So here's, I've been banging this drum, guys, for like 30 years, literally.
Yeah.
30 years.
Yeah.
Warning about the coming great deception. I was scoffed at, laughed at, jeered at, blah, 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 blah. Now it's out of the bag. And you guys got like, we're trying to get to Tucker with some of our materials. So if you guys have it in, let me know.
Oh yeah, sure.
We're going to help.
Somebody created a hashtag, right? Hashtag Tucker talk to LA.
Nice.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Seriously,
We'll use it.
Somebody's
We'll
got
use
that
Absolutely use it.
hashtag. Because I think we could bring a lot to the table. Here's the
Yeah.
bottom line. If we don't understand, and I owe Gary Stearman to this because it was Gary Stearman who brought this at the Nephilim Mounds conference. Let me get rid of my mail here so it doesn't ping every 5 seconds. Good. So Gary Stearman at the first Nephilim Mounds conference, and that's a 3-hour conversation because there was a crop circle a month before that in a standing field of corn, which was 8 feet tall, which is the second largest crop circle ever appearing in the United States. It was dragon heads right across the stream, the river. Guess what was there? The Indian mounds, the so-called Indian mounds, but they're not. So for the first time, you've got a group of Christians in Newark, Ohio, giving the biblical an explanation about what these mounds are. But I digress. So Gary Stearman is talking about Genesis 3:15. We're all on the edge of our seats. Most of us knew Genesis 6, but we didn't understand what is the prelude to Genesis 6. Genesis 3:15 is the gateway to the entire Bible. It's not taught in the churches. Most Christians have no idea what it is and what's going on and how that affects everything else in the biblical prophetic narrative. Genesis 3:15 is the pre-incarnate Christ is here. Adam and Eve have just sided with the dragon. The dragon's over here. So Adam and Eve, here we go with the balloons.
Oh, my daughter's
Right
gonna
on
love those.
cue.
I don't know how to stop it.
What
It's
was
all by your
that?
hand. It's by your
I have-
hands. It's your hand
It's
motions
my hands,
on
I know.
the, yeah.
What am I doing
Yeah.
that triggers this? And it's been
Thumbs
on. That's the other one. If I do this,
yeah.
I usually get a thumbs up. But I mean,
Okay.
it's like, anyway, I
Hey,
digress.
aliens hard at work, LA.
It's the number. No, actually, good angels are.
yeah.
So the Genesis 3:15 narrative, you've got the pre-incarnate Christ saying to the dragon, your seed, your offspring will be at enmity, at war with the offspring, the seed of the woman. That's the entire Bible right there. And if we don't understand Genesis, and it's not taught. I was at a church service a while back in the Santa Monica Mountain area, and the pastor was up there talking about Genesis 3:15, and he completely missed the point. Completely missed the point. Had no idea of what that passage is so pregnant with meaning. It sets up the rest of the biblical narrative. Because 3 chapters later, guess what? The seed of the dragon, the offspring of the dragon, is manifesting on the world in the form of the Nephilim. So all that to say, you've got this cosmic war, which has been going on for millennia, and it continues. Then you jump forward to Genesis 6, which results in the flood. Why does God, remember, there's not billions of people here. Right. We don't know how many people there are. It's probably a couple of million, if that, maybe not even that, but it's very centrally located in one area. And he just floods the whole thing, gets the animals, and we're off to the races. And then shortly after that, you get the Tower of Babel, where Nimrod becomes Gibborim through ritualistic chess magic. I wrote all this in the Cosmic Chess Match, and in counter move, how the Nephilim returned after flood. So after the Tower of Babel, you get Sodom and Gomorrah. What's the deal with Sodom? Huge Nephilim deal going on there all day long. And wherever the Nephilim are present, judgment comes down at some point. It might not happen right immediately, But at some point, judgment happens. So in the days of Noah, it's not a weekend frat party with the fallen angels coming down. It's not. It's much, much longer. It could be as much as 450 years, maybe even longer.
Wow.
So they're contaminating. The book of Enoch tells us that the fallen angels commingled their seed with the animal kingdom, creating chimeras. Guess what? Well, that's impossible, blah, 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 blah. We're doing it right now
Exactly.
in labs all over the world.
Right.
We're doing the same thing. So don't use that for your excuse, because that won't work. Jump up to Matthew 24. Jesus is here. There's no testament, no New Testament written yet. And he goes, it'll be like the days of Noah when I return. So when was the last time you heard a talk on that? And usually it's like, the people in the days of Noah, they were eating and drinking and giving in marriage, and they were partying down and blah, blah, blah. Well, the man came forward and received the morning offering. I mean, I'm poking fun here, but again, out of the entire Tanakh, he points us back to Genesis 6, the days of Noah. What differentiates those days? The presence of the B'nai Elohim coming to earth, mingling of the seed, Genesis 3:15. Boom, there you go. Then you get one of the most enigmatic scriptures in all of the biblical prophetic narrative. It's in Daniel, chapter 2, verse 43. And the angel to Daniel goes, Dan, seal up the words to this book. So that means the book is sealed.
Right.
You can read it all day long. You're not going to understand it until the time of the end. And then he gives us what I would call a supernatural frisbee toss. And that supernatural frisbee is men and women will run to and fro over the face of the earth. Knowledge will increase. If we were to track knowledge from a dime of Daniel 2,500 years ago to Gutenberg, it's flatline. Nothing changes.
Right.
And Gutenberg with the printing press, boom, all of a sudden we can print books. You don't have 30 smelly monks in a scriptorium scribbling everything on vellum. All that's gone. Now we're printing. And this means the common man can read. And what are they reading? They're reading the Bible. That's the first book that's printed, pretty much. And so that begins to change. And then we get, that's the 1600s. So by the time we get into the 19th century, 18th century, we're looking at the beginnings of the Industrial Revolution, which then blossoms. And now in modernity, as I'm speaking, men and women run to and fro over the face of the earth as I'm speaking.
Right.
That prophecy is fulfilled. We are here. And knowledge will increase. It's exponential. So it's Daniel. And then Daniel in 2:43 says this, their seed. There it is again. Which is why if we don't understand Genesis 3:15, when we get to Daniel 2:43, who are they? Their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. And they is none other than the fallen ones. And it all hails back to Genesis 3:15. And our fourth film in the UFO series, it's on abductions. Remember, folks, we'll have 10 films released. Right now, we have 8 films released.
That's crazy.
8 films on the entire UFO phenomenon. Abductions, close encounters of the first, second, and third time. 2 world experts sit down. The head of exopolitics, Portugal, Francisco Carrera, and Preston Dennett, who's written numerous books. And these guys have a different opinion than I do. But we're talking. It's, the viewer is witnessing 3 guys who have been in this for decades. And we're just talking shop here. It's a great film.
Yeah.
The abduction film number 4, we have 4 people that have been abducted. 2 women, 2 men. The 2 guys have been abducted since they were 6, 7 years old.
Oh my God.
Sperm is always taken from the men. Ovum is always taken from the women. Karen Wilkinson, who we published her book, Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest, was taken and impregnated by them 3 different times. In the 3rd month of the pregnancy, she's reabducted, and they take the fetus, they take the entity from her womb. The problem is, where does that entity live? Because it's just 3 months old. It cannot live outside the womb. Guess what? In our 6th film, which is on cattle mutilations, we put forth the theory, and we're the only people that I'm aware of that have ever done this. The cattle mutilation, the cows are completely drained of blood. Genetic material is taken from the cow. The tongues are excised. The eye is taken out. The sex organs are removed. It's very grisly. Completely devoid of blood. There's not a drop of blood on the ground. Bovine blood, the blood of cattle, can be used in human transfusions.
No.
Oh, wow.
Way.
Let that sink in. So when that baby is
Wow.
taken from Karen, they have created an artificial womb for that hybrid entity to grow into maturity. This is cutting edge stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And we've got it. My business partner, Gil Zimmerman, and I, Chuck Zukowski was instrumental in hooking up some of the interviews. And Chuck Zukowski's Mr. Cattle Mutilation himself. He's done about 50 of these things through the
Wow.
years. And, I mean, this is what I mean. It's not armchair research. We're talking to 4 people that have been abducted, 2 men,
Wow.
2 women. And when you look at Emil Jurek and Al Matthews, I mean, these guys were taken, and both of them are Christians. Both of them have stopped the abduction.
Really?
It's like Karen and Angela, because they have a personal relationship with Jesus. And that
They became Christian
They became
after
Christian.
all of
Yeah.
these things were happening to
Yeah.
them, and then it has stopped?
Yeah, we
Wow.
actually led Al Matthews to the Lord. He had an
Wow.
encounter with a hybrid that totally freaked him out. He goes running over to Gordy Tong's house. Gordy gets me on Skype. I tell him exactly what's going on. We send literature. 2 weeks later, he comes across the line. Now he's telling other
Wow.
abductees about what this is and how to get out of it. So
No
Al is
kidding.
in Al is in the very first film, which he's the tentpole. Everything revolves around Al's testimony in the very first film. But then he does an incredible job in the 4th film on abductions.
Hmm.
And, these guys were taken. And this is the breeding program. Their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. And, of course, some people will go, well, why does God allow that? Well, why does God allow Auschwitz?
Right.
I mean, right? Why
Yeah.
does he allow
Right.
1,400 or 1,200, depending on who you want to believe, helpless civilians be cut down and slaughtered in the most heinous of ways in Gaza? Why does he
Right.
allow that? Because we are at war, and the protocols of that war, he will not act. He will not act until the rider on the white horse, which of course is Jesus,
Hmm.
when he comes back, and that sword that comes out of his mouth, that's how he strikes down. And everything changes at that point. But we're still over here. We're not even close to the rider, although it could happen soon, and maybe it will.
Dude, okay, so I'm dying over here because I've got so many questions. Every single thing you said, I want to
know.
spend an hour on. Okay, but we can't do
We
it.
could. That's why there's 30 films.
Yeah,
18
exactly.
months,
Exactly. Let me just ask you. So thank you for that huge overview. Okay. The silver discs that people talk about seeing, right? The UFOs, or now they've changed the terminology. Now it's UAP. Okay.
It's okay to talk about them now.
Yeah, exactly. As long as
Don't
we
call
change
them
the
UFOs.
terminology, that's right. As long as we change it, we control the narrative.
That's
So, what are the discs? Thank you for that blessing, sir. What are those shiny metal discs that they've been seeing since what,
This
the 40s?
is book number 15, which I've already started, and I have 16 chapters written, or 6 chapters written, not 16, 6. But the Lord redirected my steps to number 14, which is the one I'm working on. So 15 is supernatural technology in the Bible. 14, I won't tell you the title, but I'm going to give you one little clue. Okay, so Adam and Eve blow it, and they get booted out of the Garden of Eden. So the Lord sends 2 cherubim guarding the east gate, but he doesn't have to worry about the north, south, and west gate. That begs the question, why? Why doesn't he have to worry about the other 3 gates? Why is it only the east gate needs to be guarded? Lots of speculation can happen there.
I never
But I
thought
just love
about
these
that.
people. Well, if it's not written in the Bible, we shouldn't be thinking about it. Nonsense.
That's the funnest part.
He's doing. He's giving us a mind. Ask the questions.
I know.
True.
So the cherubim are there in the garden, and what's in between them? A flaming sword.
You're gonna set off some balloons, LA.
Which turns every which way.
Yeah.
Balloons. I mean, see, I can't control it. Go
Yeah.
figure. So that flaming sword is technology. That's not something that's just supernatural. And
Right.
and what happens? Why does the sword turn every which way? And it's got some mechanism. That's supernatural technology. These discs, and we were out. This was in our 8th film. We went out to the debris field in Roswell, this is this way. It's not armchair. I'm not sitting, and we've done all that.
Right,
We've done the
right.
homework, but we're actually interviewing people and talking to people. And then we drove out to the debris field, which is absolutely in the middle of nowhere. Okay.
Hmm.
Middle of nowhere. I mean, it's like there's nothing around. And, nobody even knows you're there. And we show the drone footage. The drone's about a couple 100 feet up and it's doing a panorama. And it's just, there's, oh my gosh, you guys are in the middle of nowhere. Yep,
Yeah.
you got it. So we know that the military was out there because we found Frank Kimbler found 3 military buttons from they were issued, they were aluminum, they were issued metal fatigues from the 40s to the 50s. So it's right in the window. They were buried in the ground. So basically what happened was after the wreckage, they had probably 100 guys out there, shoulder to shoulder, on their hands and knees, picking up the wreckage. They didn't get it all because when the craft exploded, it was like it shot out like a bullet out of a 22. And some of the smaller pieces went into the ground. So we're out there with a metal detector. This is all in the second film. You can go to streaming.lamarzulli.net right after this interview, streaming.lamarzulli.net, download it and watch it.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll put the link down.
Yeah.
In the description.
Or if you want the hard copy, lamarzulli.net. So here's the rub, guys. We're out there with Frank Kimbler and Chuck Zukowski. They've got metal detectors. This is all on film. And Frank gets a hit. We go running over with the camera, and we watch him unearth a piece of metal that's about that big, the end of my pinky. It's folded in on itself. It shows evidence of high heat. Something traumatic happened to the metal. How do we know? Because the metallurgist looked at it and told us. We tested the metal. It's an aluminum alloy that wasn't invented until 1953.
Oh, wow. And when was the crash?
1947.
Wow.
And it's not an exact match to anything that we have. The closest to it is an aluminum alloy, a 6000 series aluminum alloy, 1953. But it's not an exact match. And we had 2 samples. Chuck took one, Frank took one. One was done in Colorado, the other one at a lab in New Mexico. Both of them concurred. 6000 series, it's an alloy, not invented until 1953, but it's not an exact match.
Wow. Okay.
That's real research, right?
Okay.
I mean, I'm patting myself on the back.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you, Chuck Zukowski. Thank you, Frank Kimbler. Thank you, Jim Peterson, our sound guy. Thank you, my business partner and the co-director of our films now, Gil Zimmerman. I mean, and really the Lord, because the Lord, we prayed, Father, please show us what's here. And he did. And he did.
Wow. Yeah, you could have just not hit that little patch of dirt with the detector and you wouldn't have seen anything. Yeah. Okay, so I know you're not going to spill the beans because you got a book coming out and we'll have to read it to get the details. So the craft are actually something physical. Yeah. They can apparently crash. Okay. We don't know why. If they're angelic, right? The crafts themselves, me personally, I don't see why angels or demons or these spiritual entities would need a metal craft. Okay.
Fair question.
Say that again.
Fair question.
So to me, it's like, and then on top of that, why are they crashing? Don't they have like better technology? Can't they have a force field that bounces them off the ground? I'd feel like
too much Star Trek, buddy.
What's that?
Too much Star Trek for you.
Oh yeah, I know. Too much Star Trek, not enough LAMarzulli.net streaming.
Well, so here's the deal. When Elisha is there with his servant Gehazi, and they're surrounded by the Syrian army, right? And Elisha says, Gehazi goes, we're surrounded, we're going to die, basically. And Elisha prays to the Lord and says, Lord, open his eyes. Shoos him out of the tent. Gehazi goes out, freaks out, comes back in. I saw the chariots of fire above the Syrian army. What are the chariots of fire? See, it's all there in the Bible.
Right.
But you don't hear a sermon about it.
Right.
And, we don't know what that is, so any type of conjecture, but blah, 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 blah. So here's the thing. A chariot is a vehicle. And Gehazi is articulating from his grid, his viewpoint. It's all he's got. So he says, well, I saw a chariot of fire, because the thing is bright and it's gleaming. so it looks like it's on fire, a chariot of fire.
Mm.
Get that?
Mm.
I mean, it's right. It's like it's screaming at us. I wrote that in the very first book on the Nephilim trilogy.
Well, now that you say it that way, LA, that reminds me not so much of the metal disc. That reminds me of what everybody's recording now, which are the glowing balls of light.
Yeah.
Okay, that
The
seems
orbs.
more the orbs. Yeah, that
Orbs.
seems
A lot
more
of
akin to what you're describing, or what even Ezekiel describes,
Yeah,
possibly. You
right.
know, and so that to me, that's my question: is are these orbs the same things as the discs? Are we talking about different categories here? Later, we've got a couple clips where it talks about a lot about these orbs appearing and being able to be summoned by different people. Like if you're familiar with Dr. Stephen Greer, he can summon these things on command after doing some like ritualistic Kundalini yoga.
Kundalini serpent spirit stuff from India.
Exactly.
And
So
that's in the churches too, by the way.
Ooh.
That's scary.
Ooh, we gotta talk about that.
All over the churches in the Signs and Wonders movement.
Really?
Right.
Yeah, it is.
Dude, it's
and I'm charismatic.
Right.
I'm a charismatic Christian.
Okay, you got to come back because we got to talk about that.
I know.
I believe in the gifts.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing is absolute nonsense for the most part.
Sure.
Oof, okay.
It's always the same thing. Some guy blowing on a microphone and people falling down.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow, so that's what you attested to. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, I just thought.
Oh my gosh.
This is and there's a clip you can.
Do you
go
have a book on
YouTube.
this? Do you have a book on this or a video on this?
No, but there's a video on YouTube actually.
Okay.
You can go Kundalini Serpent Spirit in the church, and they'll show what's going on, and then they'll show what's going on in India.
All
It's
right.
exactly the same thing.
That's what I'm watching before bed tonight.
You'll get nightmares.
Nah, I won't.
Okay,
I got Jesus.
Just give me this much. Are the flying discs described and photographed, right? Are they the same thing as the glowing orbs, or are we talking about different things here?
Different things completely.
Okay. Are the grays, quote unquote, right, that have been dubbed the grays, are those the same things that are popping in and out of our dimension when people are conjuring or doing these kinds of rituals?
Yes and no. The grays are okay. And this is, can I prove this? No. When was the last time someone sat down with a fallen angel? Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with Beelzebub, and we're going to ask him some questions. So, Beelzebub, what was it like with it's just never going to happen, right? But this is based on decades of research. You've got the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, which are earthbound, according to the Book of Enoch. So right away, if people have trouble with the Book of Enoch, they won't even listen to you. But the Book of Enoch is quoted in Jude. So then the commentary to that is, well, it's just one little paragraph, and Jude's a small book, so it really doesn't have blah, 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 blah. You know, just...
I think 2 Peter 2, though.
Yeah, I think there's two places.
Right? Tartarus.
Yeah. Well, that's a different deal.
Yeah. You're right.
That's the fallen ones from the flood that are in Tartarus. Where does Jesus go? That's another 3 hours. And I wrote about that in the book Countermove, How the Nephilim Returned After the Flood. See, we're already, we got another 25 minutes.
No, don't do this. Don't do this
you
to
gotta
us.
come back, LA. You gotta come back.
This is so bad.
Okay.
Ben's your biggest fan, LA. Ben's your biggest fan.
I just
Look
have
at
so
him.
many questions,
He
man.
didn't sleep for 3 days.
LA, I hate like fire hosing and shotgunning all these topics and just running with I literally want to talk about one thing for 2 hours, you know? But we got to do what we got to do. All right. This is the construct that we're in. It's called time, and we're bound to it, unlike certain entities. Okay. So let's hop into the second category. Dennis, do you want to pull up?
Before you do that, let me just come to the punchline. The disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. The Nephilim are the progeny of fallen angels and women of earth, earthly women.
Yeah.
Creating a hybrid being known as the Nephilim. When they're destroyed, they are earthbound, according to the Book of Enoch. They are earthbound. They are the demons that inhabit the earth. They are earthbound. So they have to inhabit a person or an animal or an object in order to manifest. Demons are not fallen angels. So the enemy, Satan, the dragon, goes, I need to create a biological suit for these demons to inhabit. That's what the grays are.
The grays are biological suits for demons to inhabit.
Yep.
Oh my God. So
that's my opinion. That's conjecture. Because there's no reproductive They don't speak.
Right.
They don't eat. There's no digestive system or anything. They're meat suits. So if a demon can go in, it's like an avatar. The demon can go in, do its job, and and manifest in our dimension.
And they're the one. I mean, you're not going to tell me, but they're the ones flying the damn discs.
Some of them are.
That's where
And
they're
those are
crashing.
those are the ones that get recovered, right?
Also human beings that are like Karen Wilkinson. She was taught by her handler, who was a fallen angel, how to fly the disc.
No way.
Oh yeah, way. And there's a woman who's not a
So
Christian.
many questions.
There's a woman who's not a Christian. Her name is Dolly, and she's never come across the aisle. You can track Karen and Dolly like this. Same experience. They have They're
Wow.
abducted at 5 or 6 years old. They have a handler, who's a fallen angel, who can shapeshift, metaskitsmatisai, and appear as whatever it wants to appear as. Eventually, the handler has sex with the ladies. That's what they do, and
Wow.
hybrids are produced. But at the same time, Karen and Dolly both learn to fly the ships.
No way.
Way.
The metal discs,
metal
the
disc.
saucers,
Yeah.
not the balls of light.
No, the metal disc, and they do it telepathically.
Oh, wow.
Wow, really? So through like what, consciousness or something? Is that what?
It's, you remember, they've been abducted since they were 5 years old, so it's Stockholm syndromes of the nines. You don't know any better. Like Karen. I mean, I've talked to too many abductees to know that what's going on is it's profoundly disturbing. Profoundly disturbing. But it's real.
Okay. On that note,
Wow.
next topic. All right.
Okay.
Dennis,
Yes,
we've got I think 2 clips. LA, we've got a clip from Joe Rogan. Okay. And we've got a clip from Ryan Bledsoe, who is Chris Bledsoe's son, if you're familiar with Chris Bledsoe.
I read the book. I know who he is.
Ooh. Okay.
All right,
Hit
let's
it.
go.
It's all talking about like these insane structures that people built in Africa, in Asia, all over the world, in Turkey. These insane structures that predate modern civilization. These are like 5,000 years before we think Mesopotamia emerged. Huge stone columns, huge structures that they know for sure were 11,000 years old. It's because there's so many of these all over the world. And Egypt is the best example.
The best example of
Egypt is a fantastic example because there's stuff that's under the sand that's even older than the massive stuff that's above the sand. And the stuff under the sand that they find when they dig deeper, it's a totally different style of building. The way we've gone today technologically with like phones and microphones and video cameras, like we've gone into an electronic technology. I think they went into another technology that was different, a different path, but way more powerful. They were able to move stones out of the mountains and move them 500 miles. They don't have any fucking idea how they did it.
A lot of people ask me, you know, Hancock, you've been arguing that there's been a lost civilization in the human story. But what sort of civilization do you think it was? Well, one of the things I think is it was a civilization that used psychedelics. I think it was a civilization that emerged from shamanism, but did not stay at the hunter-gatherer stage, but that took the essence of shamanism and integrated it into a very different kind of civilization from our own, which pursued things in different ways.
Okay. That's the first one from
Yes
Rogan.
and no. Can I comment on that?
Oh yeah, please.
Yeah. That's Graham Hancock, and he's an amazing researcher. My hat is off to him. I tip my hat to him. He's amazing.
Hashtag Hancock talk to Ellie.
Yeah, but he is rabidly anti-Christian.
Right.
Very
Right.
much so. And he's right. He's totally right that things are stemming from shamanism, because when Moses and Aaron show up in Egypt, which is thousands of years after, obviously after the flood. And so a lot of what Rogan and Hancock are talking about is pre-flood, like Saxe,
Right.
like the Great Pyramid. So, but when Moses and Aaron show up, there's already a full-blown occult paradigm in operation. That's written in the book Countermove, How the Nephilim Returned After the Flood. I guarantee, excuse me, you will never hear that taught in the church. And they missed the whole point.
Sure.
What a shame.
So, yeah, Moses and Aaron come in with their staff, but that no one's freaking out. In fact, the magicians can do the first 3 plagues. They're shrugging their shoulders. Who cares?
Yeah.
And then after that, they kind of go, oh boy, we're in trouble. This is the real guy. And this is how the Lord works. This is why he says to Abraham, Abe, go down to Egypt. You're going to be there for 400 years. It's not going to be a picnic until the sin of the Amorites comes into its fullness. Then I'm going to bring you out. And that's a 3-hour conversation, which we don't have time for. But
okay, so that clip ties into this next clip by Ryan Bledsoe. Dennis, if you want to hit that one real quick.
So my dad comes home. He said, I saw this lady, and she said this, that, and the other. And she said that she goes by Hathor, but that throughout time and across many cultures, she was known by many names. And she, she had the dress. She had it glowed, like it was like twinkled like stars. It's like this white gown that it was like it had stars all over it, right? Well, you can look up ancient depictions of Hathor, and she was depicted this way with the bull. It's symbolism, right? It's like, you remember she appeared first as a bull, right?
Yeah, story? The bull. Yeah, there was the bull first, then her.
Right.
And I think he said it was like similar to the Lady of Guadalupe.
Yeah, many names. But you look at depictions of Hathor.
Hathor.
Yeah, it's this Egyptian deity, and she was depicted as a bull. And she had this dress that was like the twinkling stars, and it's the notion that she was like the divine mother of the cosmos, nourishing with her udders. The cow, the bull symbolism. She was she fed the cosmos with her milk. It was this symbolism, right? Mm-hmm. But she said, I go by many other names. Being a Pentecostal, I'm like, what the hell? I've never heard of Hathor. And then he said that this being, the lady, she said that Amun-Ra is the hidden one. That's all she said. No, Amun-Ra is the hidden one. Yeah.
What does that mean?
I don't know. But the point is, I spent a lot of time after that studying Egyptian mystery schools, which led me to Rosicrucianism, Hermeticism, Gnosticism, just wisdom traditions in general, and
okay, the reason I wanted to show wild. Okay, this is a recent episode on the Danny Jones, the Concrete podcast, where he interviews Ryan Bledsoe, and Ryan there talks about one of his dad's experiences, Chris Bledsoe, who also, like Stephen Greer, can conjure these balls of light and these entities on command, basically.
Sure.
And this was one of the entities that appeared to him. Okay, it was this woman with the shiny dress that goes by the name of Hathor, which is an Egyptian deity. So the question, and she said she went by many names to many different civilizations. So my question is, are these entities that are appearing today the same deities or gods or beings or whatever you want to call them that were appearing to earlier civilizations in human history that helped them, even like Rogan and like Hancock talk about, help them build megalithic structures, things we can't explain today? Are these the same entities that are appearing today?
Yes and no. Again, I'm here with Beelzebub, and Beelzebub is Hathor, or the entity calling itself Hathor. Is
I have a sound effect for this, LA.
I hope
yes, it is the
same
entity.
Is that the same entity as the one that appeared to Our Lady of Fatima? Thank you, Beelzebub, for coming on the record. I mean, I'm joking here, and I really don't want to ever interview Beelzebub. Let's just fun. Please forgive me, but I mean, what you're looking at, and again, there's no way to know. But from my point of view, there's a couple of things here. You can be looking at another fallen angel taking its place and calling itself Hathor in honor of one of the fallen angels who was rounded up and thrown into Tartarus. When Jesus goes into Tartarus, right, and the fallen angels are there. So Jesus dies, but his body's in the tomb. So his spirit and his soul go down to Tartarus. It's a proclamation. No jailbreak, nobody's getting out. I've got the keys. And he does that because the dragon Satan didn't imagine that he would become death. That wasn't
Jesus would become death? Oh, yeah.
Jesus became death.
Yeah.
God becomes death. Are you kidding me? Which was completely foreign to him. That's why it says he's the firstborn of the dead.
Wow.
So he may be preeminent in all things. For in him the fullness of God was pleased to dwell. It's the cosmic implications of that are mind-boggling. Yeah. And that's why the enemy didn't understand it. He didn't understand if Jesus becomes death, He's the firstborn of the dead. And that's also a type of a rapture, because when his body finally reunites with his spirit and his soul, then he rises up. That's a prototype of the rapture of the church. For the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive and remain will be caught up, harpazo, together with them in the clouds to greet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. And that's where we are. I mean, that's the blessed hope of escaping the tribulation, in my opinion. There's a term that the late Russ Dizdar taught me, metaschismaticide, and it's the ability for these entities to shapeshift. We know from the biblical prophetic narrative that the dragon, Satan, can even appear as an angel of light. We know that.
Yep.
So the question is, what are we looking at just because an entity calls itself Hathor, or the Edward Billy Meyer UFO contact from the Pleiades, which I read when I was still a New Ager in 1976, 77, 78, somewhere in that time frame. That entity is called Semyaza.
Oh, I've heard that before.
The Semyaza. Well, I was the guy that broke that story.
Yeah, you sent me that video, Ben, and he talks about that.
I'm the guy that put that together
wow.
before the internet, and I wrote about that in the Nephilim trilogy, because how many Christians had read the Book of Enoch and Edward Billy Meyer? Not many, if any, right? And because I lived across the aisle, I knew about Semyaza from Billy Meyer. And so when I'm reading the Book of Enoch and I get to the fallen angel, the ringleader of the 200, Semyaza, the different pronunciations of it. I know Derek Gilbert pronounces it differently, and Derek's amazing. But Semyaza, when I'm reading Book of Enoch and I go, oh my gosh, and I go to my library and I pick out Edward Billy Meyer's UFO contact from the Pleiades, he's talking to the same guy. The question is it the same entity that somehow was released from Tartarus, or is it another angel who's taken over his mantle? We don't know, but he uses the same name.
Got it. So you're saying that it might be a different entity that's using the name, because if these things are fallen angel, demonic, whatever, I don't know what term to use. If these things are malevolent,
they are.
Why would people assume that anything appearing to them is just telling them the truth at all times?
Right.
Where does this concept of benevolence come from?
I mean, this is, I forget who taught me this. He's passed away. I just can't think of his name right now. He passed away about a decade ago. But we used to joke. So let me get this straight. Someone knocks on your door at 2:30 in the morning, right? You look through your peephole or your window or whatever. You have no idea who this person is. How many of you are going to let him in? Anybody out there?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to do that. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, like with Chris Bledsoe's son, oh yeah, Hathor, that's who it is. They open themselves up and they allow these entities to appear and come in and do all this stuff.
And her message was Amun Ra is the way, or the chosen one, or something like that. Are these things ever bringing a message about Jesus, the Son of Christ, Jesus as a savior, anything like that, anything about Yahweh? What is it bringing?
It's always the opposite. It's always the opposite. I've got books on this. I've written about it, talked about it incessantly. This is part of the coming great deception. It will change the entire planet when they show up. And it will change everything. And we're right on the cusp of it.
Okay, last one. We got 10 minutes, 12 minutes. I'm going to milk it. I'm going to show you 2 more videos, okay? And I want it's from Stephen Greer's documentary, which is called Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, right? And then a dot that I've connected recently, and I would love your opinion on it. Okay, so go ahead, Dennis.
About 6 months after I had the near-death experience and I began learning meditation.
There it is.
I was sitting up on a mountain up in North Carolina, and right before sunset, I looked over towards the southwest and I saw a beautiful silver disc, seamless, Close Encounter of the First Kind. It looked exactly like the ET craft I'd seen when I was 8 or 9, when I was a child in North Carolina. which actually ignited my interest in all this. And a thought was sent into me that was very clear. It wasn't my random thought or hallucination at all. And it said, behold, what a beautiful universe God has made. And with that, I went right into the state of consciousness that I was in the near-death experience, except now I'm awake and standing on the mountain. And then we kind of merged together in our meditation, and I created with them this protocol for making contact with them.
2 years later, Dr. Greer attempted to recreate the experience during a meditation teacher training course in the French Alps, resulting in the first mass witness CE5.
When we were in teacher training, it was very intensive. We were meditating, doing yoga, listening to endless tapes of Maharishi.
So I did a deep meditation, went into this state, and could sense where in space these ET crafts were, connected to them, introduced myself by name, and then vectored them like you would vector a jet into JFK airport.
All of a sudden, right out of nowhere, appeared a metallic, silent, tetrahedron-shaped silver ship. It just appeared. And I said, what is that, Steve? There was no sound. And it was just suspended in the air and then gone.
So that's the first one. And if y'all aren't familiar with Stephen Greer, he's one of the current leading experts on the alien UAP phenomenon. He briefs US presidents, he has for the past, 30 years or something like that, on alien phenomenon, etc. And somehow he has connected what's happening. He doesn't just look at it from a scientific perspective, an observational perspective. He now has turned it spiritual, and he takes people on these quests, on these experiences where they get together, they meditate, they do yoga, they do all these practices, these pagan practices that have been practiced for millennia, and they are encountering the entities. Whereas other people throughout the centuries that have performed those same exact practices were not encountering aliens. They were encountering spiritual beings. And so it's very, very curious that the leading expert in this field right now also sees this as accessible by spiritual means, and Dennis, do you want to pull up the next one, the Master Healer?
Yes.
Had a great experience at Oracle and ended up having a healing experience.
We did these protocols and we got into meditation and things started to appear, and we're photographing it, we're seeing it, we're watching it, and we're looking around and everyone's mouths are wide open. A lot of times these craft, they pop in and out so fast that to try and capture them on a telephoto lens is next to impossible.
While in deep meditation, they heard a being walking behind them, phasing in and out of 3D spacetime. Marconi adjusted his camera to shoot in the direction that Dr. Greer pointed. All of a sudden, a teardrop-shaped trans-dimensional object materialized between Ed Moen and a medical student, which was witnessed by most of the circle.
We reviewed my photos from that particular time, and there on the hillside, standing behind a man named Ed Moen, was this being that everyone's like, whoa, what is this?
This being has a very triangular face and has been seen on a number of our expeditions, and they are known as Master Healers.
So that's the being that appeared to them multiple times. Okay. And Stephen Greer has this program, which he just said in the previous video. It's called the CE5 protocols. And he teaches people online. You could get the app, he teaches people online how they can communicate and get in touch with and conjure these same entities and UFOs. That in particular, Dennis, if you can now pull up the photo, that being that he calls the Master Healer seems very akin to or very similar to this guy over here that Aleister Crowley conjured in 1918, which he conjured via a sex magic ritual, and this thing appeared to him. Okay. Now, Aleister Crowley said, and I quote, "Today they call them angels and demons. Tomorrow they will call them something else." Okay. I couldn't help but notice, I don't know how these dots got connected for me. I don't know how that happened, but I couldn't help but notice that lamb, which Crowley conjured, looks a very, very similar head shape, same clothing. Lamb is wearing what looks like a robe. And this Master Healer entity that appears to these guys during their CE5 protocols regularly looks very similar. So I'm very curious, what's the connection between the alien phenomenon and what I guess you could describe as Greer's kind of like new age philosophy and spirituality, right? Because there is a connection. The words they use in their documentary are all new age terminology about manifestation, about projecting your consciousness, about elevating yourself into the Christ consciousness. It has all of these new age undertones or overtones. And so you, having come from the new age, what do you see? How do you see these things connecting?
Well, it's 100% counterfeit. I mean, that's what we're looking at. Aleister Crowley definitely conjured up lamb through ritualistic sex magic. And there's not much of a difference between what Greer teaches with CE5. And, you know, seems like a really nice guy.
Yeah. No slight to him.
You know, have a cup of coffee and talk shop. But in my opinion, with all due respect to Mr. Greer, he's utterly deceived. And having been with the guru, with my third eye open, having had spirit guides in the whole 9 yards, I mean, I get it. The occult is real. Shamanism is real. But there comes a price with all of that. And eventually it's your soul. That's what they're after. They're soul eaters. And they will get your soul if you continue to follow down that path. So all this is all new age, is all dressed up in new age, Eastern mysticism. The fact that he's, you know, talking about meditation, there's nothing new here. This is how the people in India and shamans and witch doctors and everybody else, this is how they communicate. When you open yourself up to what people would call the Kundalini serpent spirit, which is, like I said earlier, is alive and well in the Christian church, Pentecostal charismatic movement. Not all, but it's definitely there. You know, when you get up and you start hissing like a snake in front of 200 people, I have a real problem with that.
Yeah.
Huge problem with that.
It's almost like you had to go through the new age movement in your life just to get to this point, because so you can explain it better to you know, and bridge that gap. Because there's so many people in the Christian community that don't really know that stuff, but you came from it. Like that to me, it's almost like God, you know, allowed that to happen so that you can come and teach us now and help us. Man, I think that's amazing.
Great. Well, I mean, we've got 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 1 minute. What do we got? Because we could squeeze another drop.
Have me back. I mean, there's just, you know, look, let me just close by saying this. Everything is heating up. I mean, we are in a window of time which is absolutely unprecedented. And what amazes me is the laissez-faire attitude of most Christian churches. And they're acting like everything is business as usual. The Middle East is a powder keg. And I believe what we're seeing may have prophetic implications, which are written in the Bible. I don't need a modern day prophet to tell me what I'm looking at. All I need to do is open up Ezekiel 38, Isaiah 17, the destruction of Damascus, Psalm 83, Bill Salas's great work, and realize that something's up here with this. Could it all just sort of dissipate? Yeah, it could. On the other hand, Turkey's saber rattling, Iran is saber rattling, Russia waits in the wings. That's Ezekiel 38. And I'm not saying that's what we're looking at because I don't know, but I'm keeping a very close eye on it. So you take that, which is biblical prophetic narrative, and you plug that into the signs and wonders and the fact that Jesus says men and women will faint from fear from what is coming upon the earth. Well, what is that? Why haven't we heard a sermon on that?
Right.
We really don't know what that is, all. Well, if this isn't it, then what is it? You know,
I think Christians should own the topic of the supernatural and of the fringe, because it's been in our book for 4,000, 2,000 years, as long as you want. We should own these topics and we should talk about them. I have friends that are like, hey, if aliens are real, because they're into these, this is the mainstream right now, right? If aliens are real, what does that do to Christianity? And I'm like, prove it. Like, what do you mean? What does it do? This is what we've been talking about, that this reality exists on top of or above or beyond our reality. So why would it change anything from a Christian perspective?
It doesn't change anything from a Christian perspective, but if a person isn't sure what they're looking at, this could tie into the great falling away, which we read about in 2 Thessalonians.
Right.
So we don't know. I mean, Mando Gonzalez, really close friend of mine, he's got a different take on the great falling away than what I do. He thinks it's just the nation of Israel, and he may be right in that, the day of the Lord. But on the other hand, it could be, not either or, it's both and. It could be the house of Israel falls away, but then many Christians who are left behind, as it were, look at all of this and fall away too. We just don't know, which is why we hold on to the prophetic text somewhat loosely. But guys, I got to go. I got another
We
interview.
appreciate you.
Thank you so much. What was the website again?
It's lamarzulli.net. If you want to get the streaming, so you don't have to buy the DVD, you can just go there and pay for the streaming.lamarzulli.net. And again, we've just scratched the surface. I think
we'd love to have you back.
I'd love to have you back. Please.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Good luck. Have a good one. That's a great way to.
Yeah, we're gonna end that way.
Man, bro,
how cool is that?
Oh my God, I have so many questions.
It's about to explode.
I'm dying. I'm dying.
That was great. That was great. We're gonna try to get him back.
We have to.
And if we do, until then, whoever's still listening to this, please comment, ask us questions, because I'm sure that we're missing stuff, and I'm sure that this podcast really opens up a whole nother can of worms in so many different areas. I mean, I have a lot of questions. The first 5 minutes, we could have just went on our famous tangents, right?
Dennis, look at this. Look how mature I am. Do you see my notes? I have a script.
That's great.
The show is developing, my friend.
Yes,
dude,
it is.
I'm so intrigued by all this stuff because I think you would agree. This is, in my opinion, what's going to be the coming great deception, right? As he mentioned.
That's what I believe.
People 100%. Are going to be deceived differently. Christians are going to be deceived. Non-Christians are going to be deceived. We're seeing the groundwork laid right now by people like Greer and like Bledsoe. And listen, I'm not sitting here like talking crap and trying to just be a jerk. Okay. We just have different beliefs about what's going on. Sure. Right. And so through our worldview, right, they see the same things happening and they're interpreting it a certain way. And through our worldview, we see the same things happening and we're interpreting it a different way. Right. I'd love to have conversations with people that disagree with us because I'm curious. I'm curious how their minds work. And I'm curious how their worldview is affecting all of this. Right.
I mean, just in the Christian space, you're going to have different, views, right? I mean,
for sure.
Dude,
just think about it. If these things, so right now I find this super curious and I don't have an answer to this. I wish I could have asked him, but he's gone. And he's gone.
He'll be back.
Yeah, I know. God willing.
They always come back.
They always come back. Hey, why the heck outside of the metal craft, okay, which actually might be physical objects, like actual alien technology that, like he said, maybe the Greys are using, like these biological meat suits of the freaking demon spirits that need to inhabit something.
Right.
That's dope, by the way. We'll talk more about that at some point. But maybe if these things actually have crashed and we've gotten them somehow over the years and reverse engineered them, all that kind of stuff, all right? That might be one category of UAP, right? Is these metal discs, which are actually technology, which we've actually reverse engineered. And maybe that's also what we see is like human technology now, which look like UFOs from 40, 50, 60 years ago, because we've gotten there. Yeah. Okay. But the balls of light are different.
Yeah. The orbs are different. Yeah.
The orbs are different.
We couldn't get into that so much. Yeah.
Those come and go. Those have impunity in our airspace. They manipulate electronics, missile silos. They shut off radar. Those are totally different. And I think those are the spiritual or the actual entities themselves, not the meat suits.
Right. Yeah.
But those might actually be the malevolent angelic, the fallen angels per se. That's how I see the difference between the two. Okay. And what's interesting, man, is like he was saying, the stage is set, right? The Middle East is a powder keg right now. Like there's all this stuff that is all happening at the same freaking time. And one of the biggest things that's happening is, for some reason, the government, because they're so transparent, right, just starts talking openly and disclosing all this stuff about
Right.
UFOs and that, hey, there's extra dimensional beings appearing and we don't know what they are and da-da-da. Just because nobody asked them. People have been asking for 40, 50 freaking years. Nobody was like, hey, we need disclosure right now. They just started doing it.
Right.
In this time period.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And what a coincidence that then in freaking Revelation 16, you've got this mention of, and this, dude, this shook me, man. This was years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago, kind of when I started getting into this and then really looking into it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is way different than what I've ever been taught. Or, okay. It talks about in Revelation that in those times, right, end time stuff, it says that 3 unclean spirits with the appearance like frogs will appear to the rulers of the earth and try to deceive them and get them to go to war against the coming Messiah. So where else have you heard about things that just appear that look frog-like or reptilian, to use modern terminology? Where else have you heard that? Like literally every person that talks about aliens.
They talk about it all the time. Yeah,
all
no,
the
it's like
time.
everywhere. Yeah.
All the time. So these things, right? And listen, this was written 2,000 years ago. John's on an island, right? And he's having a vision of the future. He doesn't have the word alien. He doesn't have the word reptilian.
Right.
He's got the word frog.
Right. Which is pretty damn close in my opinion.
Well, frog. Okay, that's close. So he sees it and he's like, hey, that looks like a frog. Right? Because that's the word he's got.
Right.
So when it says 3 unclean spirits like frogs, like frogs doesn't mean it's a frog. It means it looks like a frog to his mind 2,000 years ago. So if these things are scaly, if they're green, if they're like they look reptilian, right? They look green and slimy and dude, even a frog has kind of a triangular head.
Right.
So if it looks like if it looks like these master healers, or if it looks like these freaking like lamb that Aleister Crowley conjured, and they're green, I wouldn't be surprised if John's like, it looked like a frog. You know what I mean?
Yeah, makes sense to me, man.
And they go to the rulers of the earth to get them to go to war with the coming Christ. Yeah. Okay, so they're gonna use humanity to freaking go to war against God when he appears. Okay. Yeah. What a wild freaking thought, bro. What a coincidence that a bunch of Middle East stuff and like Armageddon religious revelation stuff is happening. And at the same time, the government's giving us disclosure about green frog-like freaking things that appear and that are real. Okay. I just see the pieces like like falling into place, man.
And for me, I see that the next big step would have to be peace.
Oh, sure.
Before it can, they have to unite everybody and then to go against, the Messiah. And before peace,
I think it has to get way worse before
exactly.
peace.
Before peace, though, it has to get way worse. Yeah. And I think that's where where we're at the cusp of right now. That's what I believe. I believe that we're going to see it escalate. I think, not to be a pessimist, but I think, 24, 25 is going to be really, really gnarly.
Yeah.
As far as wars and, illnesses too, that are whatever man-made or whatnot, but they're going to be blamed on other things, and that's why, we got all this hatred towards, China because of the jab. And then you got, other stuff that you hear is coming out and all this other crap. But I think it's going to get way worse. The financial system, economic system everywhere.
Right.
It's going to get way worse, way worse, way worse. Lack of knowledge, our attention on social media and, just not really understanding, going to quick videos.
Man.
Even just thinking in the Christian space, when I'm scrolling on social media, I get like all these videos and all these, 30-second to a minute videos and short sermons, all these cool. It's great. It's nice. And you can learn like that too, but there's also like that, it changes your attention span, right? That you can't actually go study the Bible. It's attacking us. We're getting attacked on all these different levels. Yeah. And then it's just going to get worse with wars. And then all of a sudden, peace. And I think that is when maybe the frog dudes show up and, and then they rally people and then they bring a lot of like goodness to the world.
Bro, they very well may be. Okay, they very well might. Because even people like Greer, like like Bledsoe, Rogan, all these people that have kind of a voice and a platform in this space, bro, they all talk about how these things, and Rogan not so much because he doesn't get direct communication with them.
Sure.
The other two that I mentioned do get communication with them, and so do others. Okay.
Right.
But Rogan talks about these things.
Yeah.
And the message they bring is love the planet. You're killing it with your toxicity and your chemicals and the Green New Deal, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
okay?
animals.
Love animals. We're all one. All of consciousness is one. Animals, human, interdimensional, the planet, it's all one consciousness.
Right.
Don't, you guys are killing each other with nuclear missiles. These things are, you shouldn't have these. It's all this kind of, it's this message of peace and love and loving the planet and prosperity. And those are great things. I'm not disagreeing with you. Okay.
Right.
But that's not what saves humanity, right? From our perspective as Christians, we believe that Jesus saves us. Right? And literally saves all the things I just listed. He creates a new heaven, new earth, new animal, like all sin, death, pain, all that's gone because of the work of Jesus. Okay?
Right.
Not because we're going to do it.
Right. Collectively. Right.
So collectively, raise your consciousness. Once we all elevate our consciousness, we're all going to make the world a beautiful, peaceful place. That's what these things are. They're higher conscious beings that have evolved over billions of years. That's what Stephen Greer believes. To be these pure conscious beings that can come in and out, and they want us to ascend and join them in this higher level of consciousness. Okay. And this is all based on what they've told him.
Sure. Right.
Right. Because they're just so forthright and so loving, and so they can't lie. They're not malevolent.
Yeah, and he sincerely believes it because he's getting, you know,
so do a lot of other people.
They're talking to these entities that we believe are demonic, and they're coming in the angel of light type of, you know, situation. And they're approaching. And listen, if you don't know Jesus, if you don't know the Bible, you're not even questioning it. You're just this big old being's coming into your life, and you're like, oh,
stuff.
You know. And we got some, you know, this is life changing. You know, that's what that Bledsoe interview, like, that's what they're talking about. Like throughout the whole thing, it's like, and their whole family's in it, you know, and getting, you know, and talking about it and getting these encounters or whatever. And that's where I believe, I agree with you. I think that the deception comes through that, and how it's going to go against the coming Messiah is really interesting to me, because I don't. That's going to be a whole nother like thing to think about.
So
you have a.
I love it. Okay, I'm mischievous. Yes. Okay, so if these things really do appear and really do bring peace, if the world's freaking blowing itself, like we're launching nukes, people are dying. Remember, in Revelation, it talks about a third of the planet dying.
Yeah. That's gonna happen
before peace happens. Okay,
right.
So you've got death and destruction, and the world's on fire, and
complete chaos,
and then peace. You know what I'm saying? If these things appear and are the source of the peace,
right? Okay, that's what I think.
What a coinker-dinker that the whole world drops everything and starts worshiping.
Totally. It turns into worship.
It turns into worship. It's not just a scientific, academic, like, oh my God, look, let's measure them. How fast are they going? Let's do the math. It's not that. It's worship. Okay. And look at the example of Greer. All right. He starts by analyzing and trying to document and trying to figure out what's going on. And it turns into worship. It's a spiritual thing. There are space daddies. We need to connect with them. We need to ascend with them. They love us. They want us to save us. It's a spiritual thing for him now, you know, and for everybody else.
Well, yeah, I mean, side note on Rogan too. Rogan, it gets spiritual when it comes to all the drugs, right? And all that.
Totally.
And imagine his platform. If Rogan is like, dude, these guys are bringing peace. This is real. This is right.
Yeah.
Imagine how many people will just follow because Rogan believes it.
Yeah, man.
Especially because he's so centered on so many other ways and so many different things, right? Like he's centered when it comes to politics, so people will take him more seriously. It's not going to be coming from the Democrats or from the Republicans or from. That's why I don't believe it's coming from the Islamic. You know, this is why I think other people disagree with me. I don't think it's going to come from that only. I don't think the Islam I think they're going to try to take over the world, but I don't think it's going to be, they're going to win. I think that's their part of the destruction part. I think it's going to be, the Jews against the Islam, against Russia, against China, against us.
All of these things, all the religions I think are going to merge. Okay.
Yes.
And they're going to merge because there's now a new source of worship.
It's
and
different.
That new source is these things.
Yeah.
These are our space daddies. They're going to claim to be our creators. They're going to claim that we seeded you guys here. All of these theories that are in the mainstream right now, they're going to say this is true. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I can very easily imagine that all religions are going to turn into worship of these things.
Yes.
Okay. That's going to bring a kind of peace because they're going to say all the religion, and this is what they're saying today, like the mainstream, like these guys. They're saying that it's the religions of the world that bring about all this hatred and evil and da-da-da-da-da. We need to get rid of these things. We need to turn our attention and focus on
real
these things.
Persecution that's coming our way too.
And why do you think they're going to start cutting off people's heads that don't worship?
Yep.
Because you're the source of the evil that we're trying to eradicate.
Yep.
And who's it going to be that's going to stick up and be like, no, we don't want that? It's going to be Christians that are aware of what's going on. You know what I'm saying? And then the end comes when the rider on the white horse comes, okay? If humanity is worshiping these beings, these entities, okay, and they say, hey, get ready because there's another force coming. They're the evil ones. They're the malicious ones. We're the benevolent ones. Look at what we've done for you. Right?
Yeah. Everyone has
like,
Bitcoin.
Yes.
Everybody's rich.
Yeah. Everybody's worshiping them. Everybody's bowing down. Everybody's buying into the deception. Right. And listen, they very well may be doing good things. Just because they're doing good things doesn't mean they're not evil.
I'm sure it will be.
Okay.
I'm sure the fruit tasted really good that even bit of, right?
Well,
it's the same deception. It's the same thing.
He didn't even lie.
He didn't lie.
Were their eyes not open? Did they not have knowledge of good and evil?
Yeah. It's the same thing with the temptation of Jesus. Like he used scripture, right? He didn't lie. He couldn't lie. It's not that he's lying. He's twisting. He's deceiving.
Right.
And it's the same thing that's happening now.
Right.
The same game.
So if these things are now telling them, hey, there's another force coming. These are the evil ones. They're the ones that want to kill you. Listen, they're not wrong. Jesus is going to come and judge.
Right.
He's going to eviscerate.
They're not wrong. Again, they're not lying.
They're not lying. They're just deceiving. Okay. Yeah. He's going to come and eviscerate what's left on the freaking planet. The only ones that survive are the ones that did not bow down and worship the freaking system, the beast.
Right.
Okay?
And doesn't that make more sense now? Doesn't the Old Testament make more sense with when they had to eradicate, different people? And God's like, get rid of them completely. It's the same thing. They're bowing down. They're worshiping. They're this adulterous nation, right?
Yeah.
That's what this world is going to become. He's going to say, no, I come to get my bride.
Yeah, man. And listen, for me, this is big picture. Okay. Like he was saying, you wanted this earlier. Seed war. Right? Yeah. Okay. So there's a seed war that's prophesied. Right. And he says, your seed and her seed will be at war against each other, right? And that seed, the enemy's seed, literally takes over the world, except for Noah. It says Noah was blameless in his generation. Another translation for blameless in the original language is pure. Okay? Yeah. He was literally the only pure one left, possibly. Right? That's the speculation. Him and his people, his family.
Yeah.
So Noah is left as untainted genetically. He's not part of the Nephilim, part of the serpent's seed. God takes him, puts him in a boat, takes the animals, puts them in a boat, kills everything else, freaking wipes him off the face of the earth. All right? To get rid of the seed of the serpent. Noah reproduces, or his sons reproduce, they produce offspring, blah, 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 blah. Us, today, aliens are appearing. People are going to start worshiping them. Everyone's going to worship and be part of the system. And we don't know we don't know if there's going to be another genetic manipulation, but there will definitely be a spiritual manipulation where everybody's worshiping these things. And what happens? God wipes everybody off the face of the earth again. Round 2, baby.
Yeah. That's exactly
Round 2.
Right. Can we go back to the
real quick? Let me finish this thought. he wipes everybody off the face of the earth except for the ones that don't worship him,
Right.
except for the ones that are pure
Right.
in their generation that worship God.
Right.
That's the second time that there's going to be an eradication event of humanity. Okay. And then you've got the millennial reign, right? It's interpreted differently. 1,000 years or more, or however long period of time where Satan's bound.
Yeah.
Everything's good, hunky-dory. Okay. And then Satan's released after that 1,000-year period.
To deceive again.
To deceive the nations again. The nations start following him again. And what happens? Round 3, baby. New heaven, new earth. God eradicates this earth for a third time. Literally what's coming, the Revelation account that we have is round 2.
Right. We have round
of
2.
eradication. We don't know anything we don't know anything about the millennial reign other than that it's just a long period of time. Then Satan comes back into the picture, humanity follows him again, and then God says, no mas. Okay.
Right.
But there's going to be a long period of time after this eradication event, just like there was post Noah.
Right.
There was a long period of freaking time.
Yeah.
And that's the time we're in. We're on the tail end of that time period.
Yeah.
Okay. So I see it as a 3-step process.
Yeah, I see it exactly how you see it. And I we didn't even talk about this. And I agree 100% with everything that you're saying. And we've talked about pieces of this, but back to the genetic manipulation that you mentioned. I've been thinking about that because it makes a lot of sense to me about, purebreds and not purebreds, right? Like, and you even hear that now with the whole like jab thing, right? Like purebred, right? So like, but I'm not saying that that's what it is, but I'm saying that it could be something like this where, you can't buy, sell, do all this stuff unless you have the mark, right? And I don't think it's, I think it's deeper than just, a mark on your hand or your head, right? I think it's going to be part of you and if you do not take that, you just cannot partake in the world economy. But I think that by taking it, you are genetically modifying yourself to where if you become this, like a part of what they're trying to do with, okay, they created a meat suit. Cool. But like, I think that they want to actually corrupt the seed. Right. And I think that's where I think that the mark of the beast comes in. I think that it's going to corrupt the seed because once you take it, you can't go back.
Right. Right.
You can't take it. There's no forgiveness for those who have taken it.
That's a really, really interesting point. If in the initial manipulation of humanity's genetics, right? The Nephilim.
Right.
If there was no longer purity, if there was no longer pure humans,
right,
outside of Noah and his family, they're the last ones.
Yeah.
Noah didn't even worship God. Noah was just a dude in that territory that worshipped it. And it says that Noah ended up walking with God. Why? Because God chose to appear to him. Okay.
Exactly.
God revealed himself to Noah, and Noah started following God. Why? Because he might have been the last one left. Okay.
That's what I'm starting to think.
And so if the flood was a result of nobody being left, right? The next annihilation event, which is the Armageddon, the Revelation account, if the next one is as a result of there no longer being pure lineages outside of those who don't worship the beast, how do they not worship the beast? By not taking his mark.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
By not taking the freaking mark, by not injecting, by not printing, okay, it's not the number 666 tattooed. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, whatever the means of cutting people out of commerce will be.
Right.
Is it Neuralink?
Yeah, I think it
is
needs
it some
to be
kind of
a biological, genetical change, maybe in your DNA.
It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter. There will be an altering of humanity.
Right.
Okay, whatever that is, there will be an altering of humanity. And there's no way to say definitively that it won't be something genetic that can be passed down. You know what I'm saying? And the only ones that will refuse to take it and that will be spared through that tribulation period are the ones that worship Christ. And they're like, I know what this is. I'm not doing that.
Exactly. Yeah,
you see what I'm saying?
There's going to be few of us, though, because a lot of people are going to be so deceived
Oh my
right?
God.
And that they're going, that's what I'm saying. It all has to come back to worship. It all, it's all deceptionist worship, because God wants your heart, and the devil, and Satan wants you not to give your heart to God, right? Because he doesn't care about your body physically. He doesn't care about, a lot of different things that we think he cares about more.
Right.
He cares about our worship, because that's what he wanted from the beginning.
Right.
He wanted worship. I'm more beautiful, right? I deserve this. I deserve that. He wanted that. And that's his whole goal. It all comes back to worship. And you can't just, that's why like this whole like 2020 thing and everything that happened in the last 3 years, people are like, oh, this is the mark, this is the mark.
Right.
No, it's not. It's, I think it might be a foreshadow of it,
Right.
but yeah, I think it has to be a genetically, which is a decision that makes you take it, right? And you're so deceived, and then you're like, yeah, this has to be right. This, look at the peace that they brought. Look at the, that's why I think all that stuff, I think actually happens after things get so bad. I don't think it's, what we see right now.
Right.
I think it's going to get way worse. Now, it can get way worse pretty fast. I mean, look what's happened in the last, 4 years now, right?
Yeah.
It's so gnarly what's happened. I mean, the last 4 years, more has happened in the last 4 years than 43 years of my life. Right. I mean, think about that, right?
For
I mean, that's true. So what can happen in the next year or two,
For sure. It could all change. It could change overnight, bro. It could literally change in the blink of an eye. People they've got a normalcy bias.
Mm-hmm.
They think that the way things are the way that things will continue. That's called a normalcy bias.
Right.
And
there's a lot of people like that,
bro,
dude.
The way things are is just an agreement that, hey, let's all be civil and obey laws that we've agreed to.
Sure.
The second somebody's like, nah, I don't want to.
Right.
Especially the ones that have the capability of violence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Police, military, or dictators. Right. The second they're like, I don't want to play by these rules anymore. I'm going to do this instead. It's over, baby.
Mm-hmm.
We've got no more semblance of normalcy.
Right.
This thing could flip like this.
True.
And people need to realize that and be ready for that. But hey, just thinking about how he doesn't necessarily lie, he just deceives, right? The dragon, Satan.
Right.
When these things come to people and tell them, we are the ones that seeded you on this planet. Okay. Heiser, for example, take this with a grain of salt. This is an opinion, right? It's not necessarily, gospel.
Right.
Heiser, for example, thinks that in Genesis, where God says, let us make man in our image, and where it says that they have partaken of the fruit and have become like one of us, knowing good and evil. Heiser doesn't think that that's a Trinitarian reference. Okay.
Oh, wow.
He thinks that it's actually a reference to the counsel of the Lord. Okay. Which that's a whole other topic. The Bible talks about the counsel of the Lord over and over again, through which he makes decisions here on earth. Okay. If these things are fallen angels, specifically if it's Satan, okay, Heiser makes the argument that Satan was part of the counsel of God before he got kicked out. So when he says, let us make man in our image, it's because he's telling the council, let's make them in our image. Not only my image, the Trinitarian image, but in your image too, a little lesser than the angels. We have been made a little lesser than the angels. Okay. When they say, hey, we're the ones that seeded you here, we're the ones that created you here, he's not necessarily lying. He's not necessarily lying, because humans were made from Heiser's perspective, in the image of the angelic as well. A little lesser though. You see what I'm saying? So it's always, dude, it's just a little change. It's just a little deception.
When I hear lesser though, do you know what pops in my mind? Just the lower dimension.
That's all I think about.
Yeah.
I think that we are a three-dimensional representation of higher dimensional entities. That's what I think a soul is, or our soul. It's fascinating. It's freaking fascinating.
Like, I don't want to think or talk about anything else. Like this stuff, like, right?
I finally, to be honest,
so hard
with
for
you,
me to go to work like tomorrow.
I know.
Like, what
Dude,
for? Who cares about this?
I'm like, hey, I'm pretty like self-aware, okay? And to me, I'm like, oh, bro, I bet you people think I'm crazy.
well,
And
okay,
I could
but
totally see why.
yeah, but I kind of think the rest of them are crazy. It's the people that are not thinking about this, the people that you talk to, and they're just like,
It's blind.
yeah, whatever,
It's
man.
blind.
Like, let's just go talk about, football, right?
Right.
Or let's just, let's talk about the next business idea. And I'm just like, dude, this is pointless.
Nothing else matters.
Nothing
else
matters, man. And I mean, I know, like, over a year ago now, like what happened to me, that's when I started saying nothing else matters.
Right.
But
and nothing else matters. Aliens are coming in.
That will not be on our we're gonna put that on our music playlist.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I just, to me, this is all I want to talk about and think about. And I really believe that this stuff is happening right before our eyes.
Yeah.
And it's a part of introducing all of this to the masses, and this is how it's happening. And there's platforms that are there on purpose. It would be incredible if Rogan would come to know Jesus, as his personal savior. And it's very possible. I mean, how cool would that be? But if that doesn't happen, I think he's going to be part of that great deception, because it's going to be aired on his podcast.
Last little thing before we get off. There is a reason Joe Rogan. Oh man, I don't know. I feel bad because I like him so much.
I like him too. I think he's great.
Listen, there's a reason. Like the guy. There's a reason Joe Rogan's still on air. Everybody else that they wanted to cancel and censor, and they didn't agree with the exact same things Joe Rogan was saying.
Right.
Tucker Carlson.
Right. Same things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same freaking things. They pull Tucker off the freaking air. Rogan gets promoted.
Yeah.
Rogan gets more money. Rogan gets new platform.
Yeah.
There is a reason Joe Rogan is on. I'm not saying he's a CIA asset.
No.
I'm not saying he's controlled opposition. None of that crap. Listen, I'm not talking about that. Strategically, there's a reason he's still on the air. In my opinion, it's because he pushes two things in particular. He pushes the psychedelic agenda, which to me is a spiritual thing, right? I think that this is one of the 100%. Reasons why these entities are coming back in droves, is because humanity's reconnecting with the spiritual elements that psychedelics.
That's a great point, Ben.
And like we saw in that clip with Hancock, he says these previous civilizations were ones that were produced as a result of psychedelic usage. Okay. And what a coincidence. That's one of Rogan's main things that he harps on, right? That he opens people up to. Secondly, this conversation, the freaking alien conversation, and about how there are space daddies, how they go over to nuclear silos and have shut down missiles, and they're keeping us from blowing ourselves up, and it's all about love, and they're benevolent, and those are the two things that I think they keep Rogan on. They don't care about COVID. They don't care about what he says about politics. They don't care. No. All of that stuff's just that's completely controlled. That has nothing to do with us. We have no power over those things. But preparing ourselves for the freaking aliens that are coming, that's a little bit harder to do unless you have the loudest voices on the internet promoting it and telling you their opinion about it, which just so happens to be what we were talking about here, that these things are great.
That's why Venice the Menace is not going to last very long.
We're going to get canceled.
So that's why we need your support now, everybody.
Instagram censoring us like crazy. YouTube will do the same. Please follow us. We've got a Rumble channel. Hopefully they don't. Spotify. Hopefully they don't. Go to Twitter or X. Follow us there. Instagram's dying. I can't comment. They blocked me for a week because I was answering questions. Facebook's crap. So follow us on these alternative platforms.
Yeah.
And dude, let's do it again.
In the right direction. Hopefully.
Let's freaking do it again.
Great day today. I love this.
Oh my gosh.
LA Marzulli, come back, sir.
Please.
That'd be awesome.
# LA talk to Bennis.
All right, brother.
All right, man.
Have a good one.
Love you. Have a good one. Love you guys. Good night, everybody. Oh yeah, I have to end it.
I was about to leave. I'm like.